Hello, welcome. It is an extra snowy day today that started with a power outage. In a strange kind of opposite way, the weather today reminds me of the introduction to this book, Technical Flexibility for Flutists, a book of organized daily practice routines by Gilbert. He says in the introduction, "It is customary to ascribe the origin of a book of this kind to some impetus or motivating factor provided by the advice of a dear friend or family member. In this case, nothing could be farther from the truth. It owes its origin solely to the disastrous summer in England in 1986. Incarcerated for a few weeks in an Elizabethan cottage in an isolated village in the Cotswolds, and tiring of alternately reading books, watching the weather forecasts, and listening to the constant patter of the rain from the eaves, I was forced to search for some interesting way to employ my time during an almost endless succession of depressing days. Had the weather been a little kinder, it is doubtful if this collection of scales and exercises would ever have seen the light of day. However, I am sure it would have benefited my golf game. The scale sections can be used in many different ways to suit the individual needs of the student or teacher, perhaps on the basis of 1 page per day, or if that is too much, 1 page per week. I have used them in my own flute classes at the rate of 1 per week, and this seemed to bring satisfactory results. The exercises on page 53 are based on passages from well-known pieces in the orchestral repertoire, and I hope they will be found to be useful preparatory studies. We'll have you guess what those pieces are in the comments later on. Thank you for humoring my kind of long-winded introduction, but I find these things very interesting. I hope you do too. The origin of this book and who Gilbert is, kind of what his personality is since he wrote this for us. If you do appreciate hearing these kinds of stories, maybe leave a like or a comment because I really think they're important. I don't like to just ignore who these people are that we talk about who've left us these exercises and music. My intention today is to give you an overview of this very useful book that was written due to bad weather, and it's basically a collection of full range scales. When I say full range, I mean always going down to low C, always going up to high D, although there are no D sharps included until the very last 2 pages. I did an episode a long time ago that I called The Life-Changing Scale Game, which was written by my former teacher, Michel Dubost. It's based on the Taffanel and Gilbert 17 Big Daily Exercises number 4. That remains my favorite way to practice scales, but this is so good for a change. It's very advanced, I will warn you. It obviously explores the upper register, as you can imagine, and I want to just talk to you a bit about how it's put together. This collection of full range scales is major, harmonic minor, and melodic minor. The way that this collection works is that first we do these full range scales in 4s, and then we do them in 5s and 6s and 7s. And as you would expect in a book like this, with these kinds of exercises, we're provided with a range of different articulations to try. I do like to go through different articulations just to keep things interesting and check in on the quality of my articulation, not just the quality of my legato. He's, in my mind, a little surprisingly specific with which articulation to do on which scale. That's a great way to start, though. That's a really well-guided way to start. And then you can mix it up and add your own, try different things. I'm sure it would not make him mad. With this grouping of 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, we don't just move straight from one grouping to the next in the full range scales. He also throws in major and minor arpeggios, diminished and dominant chords, augmented chords, sometimes whole tone scales and chromatic scales, but not with every single grouping. There's some pretty interesting things in the back of the book, including chromatic intervals. Those are really good to practice, and because we play so much tonal music, we tend to do intervals within a certain scale rather than chromatically. That's one of the many exercises in this book I would really recommend highly. He also has you do major chords starting on the 3rd and the 5th of the chord, so we're not always starting on the root. Page 53 is where he goes into passages that are inspired by orchestral repertoire. And I would love to see in the comments if you can tell what the pieces are that he's used. These are specifically exercises to help you prepare to be able to play those more easily. If you have a guess or if you can tell, please leave a comment and let us know. I'm at least going to wait a long time before I give it away. He specifically says about pages 54 and 55 that they are for the adventurous. This is where we add high D sharp, high E, and high F. He does not give fingerings. He gives you some suggestions of where to find fingerings. And these days those resources are everywhere, so I'm not going to take the time to give you those either, but they are out there and available, and this book will get you used to going up to high F regularly. I also quite enjoy that he has a quote very similar to something Marcel Moyse says a lot, especially in De la Sonorité, which is a book many of us know. I'll link it in this video description as well. He says, be careful not to overdo the practice of these exercises on pages 54 and 55. A little practice often will be better than a protracted and determined onslaught on rare occasions. It might also be appreciated if you warn those nearest and dearest to you of what is about to take place, and if possible, equip them with earplugs. That is an overview of the book. It's a great book. I have a few thoughts for you about practicing before we wrap this up. I would definitely do what he says. Practice the bracketed parts at the beginning of the book, get them perfect. The brackets disappear, but he leaves a note to continue throughout the book, practicing the high notes first and then putting them in the context of the rest of the exercise. If I've been away from this book for a while, I definitely do that. I want to give my fingers every reinforcement to get those high notes really flawless. Another tip, I would say, think about your high C sharp fingering. I talked in an episode about high note fingerings that there are two very good options for high C sharp. You can do with or without your left hand pinky. It really doesn't make a difference. And it depends on context. If I'm going from a C to a D flat, I will leave my pinky down. If I'm going from a C sharp to a D, I won't use my pinky on the C sharps because it's just an extra awkward little weak finger to get down and up for no real reason. You run into issues with this much less, but I would also say to explore your high D fingering, because when you have the augmented arpeggios and you have sometimes an A sharp to a D, if you use normal fingerings, it's very awkward. There are some high D fingerings that avoid using this first trill key and then being forced to slide it quickly over. You don't have to choose the same alternate high D fingering that I do, but for this one, I like the fingering where you have your thumb on the B flat key and you press down your third finger on your right hand so that we don't have to do this awkward going from the A sharp to the D natural. We can go from this fingering to this fingering. Also, sometimes you will just need to breathe within one of these exercises. It's nice if you can get it going fast enough that you can make it through the complete line without having to breathe. But there's no shame in needing to take a breath. I would just say try your best not to breathe near the high notes, because sometimes we use a breath as a little conscious or subconscious way to give ourselves a break. Your fingers up there would love a break. Don't give it to them, give them discipline. You'll be glad later on. One thing I really like to keep in mind with these exercises, they aren't only to get confident in the high register. In my mind, that's not the only thing they're for. I think they're also really good to throw us off balance from what we typically practice. We typically do scales, maybe 2-octave scales, maybe full range, but up to a high C. I find that all the exercises that I do that go up to high C, I'm solid up to high C. But if I then go up to high D or high F, it confuses the whole exercise, not just those top pitches, because it gets me out of my routine. You want to purposefully throw yourself off balance and deal with new challenges. It's great for your brain, it's great for your playing, it's not just great for those high notes, it's wonderful for your whole approach to technical exercises so you don't get in a rut. This is really true if you don't practice full range scales very much, but even if you do, just extending that range really gives us a new challenge. Of course, he's stretching us not only with the high notes, but also with the groupings, doing not just groups of 4 or 6, but 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s. It's really good for us. These are very advanced exercises. They are not for the faint of heart. If you're trying to build in the feeling that a high D is nothing so special, you play it all the time, it's really good for that. I hope maybe even if you were already aware of this book, I've said a thing or two that might be of interest, might give you some new ideas as you practice. If by chance that's true, please leave my video a like. It does help my video to be promoted more on YouTube the more likes I get. Thank you.